So hello, welcome to another episode of History Hunters. I'm here outside of Dodge City, Kansas. Wait, that's wrong. I'm here in Central California. I'm not confused. The reason I said that is because the movie Dodge City with Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland and Alan Hale, who was the father of Alan Hale of Gilligan's Island, all came out here in 1938 to film the movie Dodge City because it looked a lot like that part of the country, though it was closer to Hollywood than Dodge City, Kansas. Dodge City, the movie, took place right after the Civil War, so this area was pristine. It's more developed today with some farming that I noticed when I came in. But Hollywood film crews were here in 1929, here at this place, an abandoned place called Cooperstown. It was one of the establishments along the Sierra Railroad. William Cooper was the guy who kind of was named after. He had a store here in town, but I do know Gary Cooper shot the Virginian here. It was his first talkie. He thought that when they went from silent films to sound, that it would essentially destroy his career. There were a lot of movie stars that thought that. They didn't have to talk, and if you had a funny voice, it could destroy your career. But Gary Cooper did just fine. It's almost been a century since he's been here, and we'll tell you all about that film and some other films that were shot here on this episode of History Hunters. So join us. Now, just as my luck would have it, I came out here and they are replacing railroad ties right out here. So they're making noise and such, but I want to show you the tracks. Look at this. Double set of tracks. Oh, they got their equipment out here today. But it was right about in this area where you see Gary Cooper riding up next to the horse. What I find interesting is that you can see a hill in the background that's got like a little ledge around it, which lines up with that one right there. So we are in the exact spot where Gary Cooper shot the Virginian. That's so cool. I wish I could go back in time and watch him film that movie here. Think about that. The promising upstart Gary Cooper shooting here.
Well, old sheepherder, how'd you like that?
Like you call me no sheepherder, you grizzled old walrus, you. There, I told you.
Keep your shirt on, partner. These cows just hang around your engine to keep warm.
Well, listen, get 'em off. I've done my stretch, and I want to go home, go to bed.
You better get your head back in that cab before some cow comes along and bites it off. All right, that. Steve, you go down there with them and bring the rest of that bunch back, and I'll cut a hole through here.
Jack.
And Victor Fleming, who was the producer of that movie. You might know the film that he filmed later. It was called The Wizard of Oz. Again, this was in 1929, about a decade before they filmed Wizard of Oz, so he was out here as well.
The Virginian is about a good-natured cowboy played by Gary Cooper who romances the new school teacher played by Mary Bryan and has a crisis of conscience when he discovers that his best friend is rustling cattle. Production for The Virginian began in late May 1929 with shooting done in Cooperstown and Lone Pine. All the railroad scenes were filmed in Cooperstown, with Gary Cooper delivering lines in his newfound Southern accent, coached by Randolph Scott. The film was released on November 9, 1929. According to the American Film Institute, The Virginian is one of the first of the studio-produced, large-scale, all-dialogue westerns. However, as the main character has little dialogue, Cooper was typecast as a man of few words, described by film historian Lee Clark Mitchell as a yup and nope actor. The movie was actually a favorite of Cooper himself. Film critic Emmanuel Levy gives the film a B+, noting that Cooper showed moral conflicts similar to the role in his later film High Noon in 1952. Film historian Colin Schindler notes that The Virginian was one of the early westerns to handle sound well. However, by the 1960s, the only surviving copies of The Virginian were of poor audio and visual quality, with film writer Bruce Eder describing them as being, quote, a chore to watch.
I have to show you this. See where the rails come off? This line has been completely abandoned, but it went off in that direction, follows the fence line, so that they could back up cars and such. That's a really cool way to do that. Now, I hope to make my way up the hill over there, because I climbed up that about 40 years ago. There are actually some Indian grinding holes on top of that rock over there. Now, the Yokut Indians populated this area. Of course, California was populated heavily by Native American tribes long before white men came out west, and it's estimated that they had a population of about 300,000 in California, and by 1900 there were about 16,000 remaining. There was a local historian, his name was Saul Elias, and he wrote in 1924, which is exactly 100 years ago, the story of the Indians of Stanislaus County is pathetic. It records the contest of two peoples for the soil of the new country. It is indeed the epic of the races in the wilderness of the plains. Elias said that by 1924, the natives who occupied the Virgin Valley of the San Joaquin and the foothills of the Sierra have died out completely. He wrote that in about 1874, that a, quote, miserable remnant of the tribes exist in primitive conditions at Knight's Ferry, and a few in the foothills above LaGrange. They can be seen paddling their frail canoes up and down the Tuolumne and the Stanislaus rivers in search of acorns and game. Now, right over in that area, again, it's almost impossible to tell because there's no landmarks today, but there was a store, and it was owned by William F. Cooper. He was born in 1824 and he died in 1908. He owned the town site and he operated the store and saloon here.
William F. Cooper, the namesake of the settlement, previously was engaged in ranching and had this cabin in the immigrant wilderness of the high country of Tuolumne County. Today, the cabin, which dates back to 1882, is on the National Register of Historic Places. It was reported that Cooper was insane from the effects of a head injury from a fall and shot to death his 29-year-old wife, Lavina, in November 1867. She is buried in Sonora. It's unknown if the rancher was prosecuted. Cooper himself is buried in this grave in Stockton with his son.
Check this out. Somebody came out here and decided to pull their motorhome out here and completely destroy it, set it on fire. County guy came out here to deal with it. I'm going to try to talk over this very loud equipment that's operating, but this is some kind of earthen ramp that was built obviously to assist with the loading of cattle, maybe, perhaps, on the railroad line here, but it gives us a bird's eye view of what they're doing down here. This wasn't here when Gary Cooper was here. You can tell this is really falling apart. There was that third rail goes off in that direction. Using this hill as a frame of reference, and the fact that the branch or the Y that goes off that way is right there, I surmise that the store was located right in this area right here. Probably over here in this flat part. Boy, if these hills could talk, huh? Okay, you see that hill behind me? I'm going to huff it up there and show you the Indian grinding holes that are up there. Hoping I'm in for it.
In this still from the Virginian, you can plainly see the hill that I'm about to climb. Notice that it's the celebrated engine number 3, the movie train, as Gary Cooper sits on the horse south of the tracks waiting for the train to pass.
Went down to the river, washed my sins away. Praying, 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 praying for another day. I went down to that river, washed my sins for free.
So I did it. It's been about 40 years since I've done this before, so figured out I'm 62, 40 years ago. was in my 20s, and I could still do it. But I'm on top of the hill. It's a beautiful view up here. And just as I remember 40 plus years ago, the Indian grinding holes are over here.
Back at me, I'm a dead man walking. I'm a dead man walking. I'm a dead man.
So you're probably going to hear my heart thumping, but here's one of the holes. There's two of them right here. They're all up here, and the vast majority of them are right over here. Check it out. The Indians, the Yokuts, used to come up here and grind their acorns. Now, they probably picked this spot because of look at this. Look at this view they had. Holy cow. Amazing. I don't know if you know much about Indians, but they would take their acorns and they would grind them up. They would get rid of the bitterness, and they would use rocks, and they would pummel the acorns in these holes, and then they would take it. It was like their flour. It's a pretty ingenious way to survive. It's really not over here, but look at this view. Can you imagine why Hollywood picks this place to film movies? Okay, since we're up here, I'll talk to you about another piece of TV movie history. Robert Blake filmed a TV series off in that area right there. I'm not sure what it was. I think it was Joe Dancer, but yeah, Robert Blake even came up here filming movies. It would not be pretty if you fell from this height, that's for sure. I have another bit of trivia for you over there. Hollywood film trivia. See that hill off in the distance? That's Rushing Mountain, and on top is a fire lookout. And it was actually used in the movie Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, when there's a guy on top of the fire lookout trying to track the criminals in the film. Peter Fonda driving the car.
In its short life as a settlement, Cooperstown received only scant mention in local newspapers. In January 1914, a newspaper reported a safe being broken into at Cooperstown, with the prime suspects from a burglary ring operating out of Stockton. The Cooperstown correspondent for the Oakdale Graphic newspaper reported this on November 2, 1915. Quote, "Who said Cooperstown wasn't on the map? We are all here and the town is growing. Mr. Marston expects to erect a new chicken house in the near future." Prior to World War I, the Sierra Rail Line carried 6 passenger trains a day through Cooperstown for those riding from Oakdale to Jamestown and other points like Sonora and Angels Camp. Cooperstown never really became a town beyond its railroad and ranching settlement, as progress eventually preempted the importance of the rail line. In December 1931, the Cooperstown rail station was closed. An article published in the Modesto Bee detailed that during the period of grain growing, there was much traffic there, but stock, which has replaced grain, is now moved to market in truck and trailers. In the mid-1970s, there was discussion about building a nuclear power plant in the Cooperstown area, but it never came to pass. In my research for this video, I was surprised to learn about yet another Hollywood movie shot in Cooperstown. An article published in the Oakdale Leader on August 11, 1932, said that RKO Studios was to commence filming The Conquerors, bringing Richard Dix, Ann Harding, and Edna Mae Oliver to the site.
So this location has some significant Hollywood history to it. I'm at the intersection of Warnerville and Crabtree Roads. Sarah and I came out here a couple years ago and we highlighted the fact that High Noon was shot here. The train depot was approximately right behind me, and Grace Kelly and Katie Gerardo would get on the train. Bad guys are waiting here. The bad guys included Sheb Woolley, Lee Van Cleef, and another individual whose name escapes me right now. But Hadleyville was the name of the town. It was right here. The train depot was here. There was a water tank back here. But also in reviewing the film Dodge City with Errol Flynn, 1939 movie, it was released in 39, but the film crew was here in November of 38. They stayed in Modesto. They came up here to film most of the scenes for that movie. Of course, this is Central California. It kind of resembles the area of Kansas in the 1860s after the Civil War. That's when the movie takes place. That depot scene was also shot here. There's a big celebratory scene. They brought in hundreds of extras, shot right here as well.
If you look carefully in this train scene here from Dodge City, you will see part of a hill in the background. It is the same hill familiar to movie buffs who watched the long shots down the railroad tracks in the classic film High Noon.
Right over this direction, see that red building over there? That building is the building that's seen in High Noon in the background. It's the only building that's left. It's a pump house that was here back in 1951 or 1952 when they shot the movie there. Of course, the hill in the background, you see that steam train coming down the way with this wailing steam engine announcing the doom that's coming into Hadleyville. Gary Cooper's going to meet his arch nemesis that's being released from state prison, and none of the townspeople will stand behind him. And I'm sad to say that the last of the apple trees that were featured here in the background of the movie of High Noon, they're all fallen. This used to be an apple orchard. And when Thomas Bullock created the Sierra Railroad in 1897, he had plans to build a town site out here, Warnerville. This was a train station for the Sierra Pacific Railroad. The Sierra Railroad, sorry. But if you see in the background, all these hills were all used for the movie Dodge City with Errol Flynn.
Yippee, 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 come a tie, yippee, yippee.
Today's my lucky day. I have a spike. Well, it's pretty embedded in the ground here. Could have been used back in High Noon was here, although I doubt if it has that kind of a shelf life. Up the tracks this way towards the foothills was a little town, a little fake movie set that they built. It was April 1976 when Ryan and Tatum O'Neil, John Ritter, Burt Reynolds, James Best, and Stella Stevens came out here to this location to film scenes for that movie. It's really a horrible cornball movie. Gary Cooper spent a lot of time up in this area shooting movies, which is fine with me because he's one of my favorite Hollywood movie actors. So I feel like I'm out in the middle of nowhere, eastern Stanislaus County. And when I was a kid, we read in Modesto B that the crew for the movie Nickelodeon was out here shooting a movie. They were staying in Modesto. And we came out here because we heard that they built this little town set. And I remember coming out here that day with my family. We took one picture, one slide, and I believe it was right there. It was a place where the tracks are close to the road here. I know that. And this would totally fit that area. They had a road that went over the railroad tracks so that the crew could access the town on the other side there. But some big names. Burt Reynolds, James Best, Stella Stevens, John Ritter, Ryan and Tatum O'Neil all spent time out here filming a movie. So this one's going to have a cemetery in it. Now it's a small cemetery. It's called the Maxwell Family Cemetery. But just to note a little bit about these towers behind me, I believe they are the transmission lines that go from Don Pedro. Don Pedro, the first Don Pedro Dam was built in 1922, I believe. Maybe went online in 23. Changed everything in the Central Valley of California. They had a dependable source of water from that point, and they also had a dependable source of electricity. There's some scenes in Dodge City where the train is going down the tracks. There's a blooper because one of these electric tower lines is in the background. I don't know if they caught that at the time they shot it, but I caught it, and it's definitely a Hollywood blooper. In a classic film, there was a school right across the street called Drake Creek School, and it's right across the street here where I almost lost it in these weeds, but here is the very small Maxwell family plot, and I'm gonna go through here to show you more.
There are actually 5 members of the Maxwell and Montgomery family buried here, with dates of death spanning 30 years from 1869 to 1899. The dead include a couple who arrived in California from Arkansas in 1852 and settled in this county in 1857. They were Thomas Maxwell, who died in 1882, and his wife Serene Prim Maxwell, who died in 1873. 3 others buried here are William Monroe Maxwell, 1894 death date, Francis Maxwell Montgomery, and Josiah Montgomery, who died in 1899.
This one is 1869. It's 30 years old. Now let's see what this says here. I believe somebody had shot this up a couple years ago, but here you go. Thomas Maxwell, Serena, then we have William Monroe Maxwell, Francis Maxwell, and Josiah Chalmers Montgomery. Oh, that's Francis Maxwell. This is Francis Maxwell here. 30 years old when she died. It's crazy. And it's buried here on the side of the road. And apparently a lot of people come by and look at it because you can see this fence line has been stretched out, and very interesting. This cemetery has intrigued a lot of people over the years. So if you remember the movie Dodge City, and by the way, these cows know I'm here, so they all are scared of me. One's taking a pee actually. They have an encampment over here, and Olivia de Havilland puts her pail in the water somewhere along here, and this is Dry Creek, and over the passage of, oh gosh, what is it, 80 plus years that they were out here, this has probably changed quite a bit. You know, Mother Nature moves land around and things like that, but this is where they shot those scenes. Pretty sure it's with this flat area here. And I wish I could line it up for you better, but this is where all these scenes were shot.
Irving, you're giving us a great deal of trouble. You're going to force me to be unpleasant.
Oh, let me alone. I'm not on your payroll, and I'll do as I please.
You'll do as I please.
What I think is really cool is Olivia de Havilland was here about a year or two before they filmed Gone with the Wind, and she became this immortal Hollywood star after that. But yeah, here in this very remote part of Stanislaus County, she was filming a movie. I think that's so incredible. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of History Hunters here in the beautiful, pristine area east of Stanislaus County, untouched by development so far. It's 2024. I hope it's many years before this area is even developed for housing, or who knows what California is going to look like in the future. But I hope that you enjoyed learning about some of the movie magic that was shot out here, some classic films. Think about it. Dodge City with Errol Flynn, High Noon with Gary Cooper, The Virginian with Gary Cooper, all shot out here. You probably wouldn't have known anything about it if you weren't tuning into History Hunters. I would love it if you would give us a comment, give us a thumbs up as well. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to History Hunters, we would love to have you join the family of history lovers, especially those of you in California who live in my neck of the woods. If you could also hit the notification bell, you will be notified every time we post a new video, and typically we post those videos on Sunday. Thank you so much again for joining us.